Hi, this is Mike Stevenson. In this little video we're going to talk about the one of the config sections that you can use with the AppFx.HL7.testing framework. So if you look at the screen here in the big video showing how the framework works, we talked a little bit about this config section I've highlighted, which is where you'd specify the actual values for things like the port and the server address for any applications which you wanted to stub or any applications that you want to send messages to. And the idea here was that you'd send messages to BizTalk in most cases, and you would simulate or stub out a third-party application, and in your tests you'd actually use some key based on the application name and the port name to work out what the config should be for when the framework sets up. Now, one of the challenges would be, it's all well and good if you've got a very small implementation with a couple of ports, but it could be a pain to have to create all this config if you've got a whole bunch of different ports. I've seen some customers having, not far off 100 ports configured. And if we take a quick look at the BizTalk server for our sample, and we can see that in that server I had 2 send ports and 2 receive locations that were MLLP adapter usage, and in each of those we've got the server address and the port number, and I need to get all that reflected in the test to be able to do it. So just to make life a little bit easier for everybody, I want to quickly demonstrate a tool that we've got that can help you do that. So if we open up the tool now, and you can see we've got a text box which contains the connection string for your management database, and then we've got 2 buttons. The first one is going to inspect the receive locations, and it would generate config for the testing process to be able to send messages to any of the receive locations on BizTalk. The second button would look at the send ports that BizTalk has, and for all the MLLP ports it would create a config item for us to be able to spin up the test framework and stub any of the applications BizTalk's going to send to. So if we click the receive location one to begin with, and you can see we get the applications to send to config, and for each one the application name is going to be the BizTalk app, the port name is going to be the receive location's name, which is specified in BizTalk. The port number is the number that BizTalk's going to be listening on, and then there's the IP address, which will be for the server we're going to send to. And then basically what you'd do is you'd copy this config section and you'd go into your tests, and then you just replace the config there with whatever the generated config is. So that means you can easily update to add any new config items or whenever you add a new port. Likewise, the same is true on the send port side. So if we click that button, it's going to go and look at BizTalk, and for all the MLLP send ports it's going to create an application to stub config entry, and the app name is going to be whatever the BizTalk application name's called, port name is going to match the BizTalk send port, and the port number is going to be whatever the send port's configured to send to. So that should give you a really good way, especially if you're creating some tests for a BizTalk setup that already exists. You can just point this tool at that and generate all the config you're going to need for any stubbing that you may choose to do. So hopefully that video is pretty useful, and we'll include this tool with the deployment package for the framework on CodePlex.